Hello and welcome to Longship Gaming. Today we are doing part 2 of our Star Wars Unlimited Twilight of the Republic draft review, focusing on the commons and uncommons of the set that you're going to be drafting and are going to make up the bulk of your decks, of your 30 card plus decks in the format. Just as by way of quick introduction, in part 1 we already did a review of the leaders. And in this one, of course, as I stated, we're going to be looking at just the commons and uncommons. We're not touching on rares unless they come up in the context of another card. But yeah, since those are the ones you're going to be getting, these are the ones that you're mostly going to be concerned about to get the most value out of during the draft. So, just a level set. This is a draft analysis. It doesn't really apply to sealed. It's a different animal. There's some crossover, but generally this is just draft focused. I've done a lot of drafts at my friendly local game store, Face to Face Games here in Toronto. I will link to them in the description. They are fantastic. They were supporting the limited format all the way through the lifetime of Set 2. I'm hoping more stores here in Toronto will have more regular drafts so people can experience limited formats. A lot of people had to travel a great distance to be able to draft at really the one store in Toronto that was doing it on a consistent basis throughout Set 2. And that was due, of course, to limited amounts of product. But now, Set 3, I think there's plenty out there, and there's really no excuse for your local game store not to handle draft. So I would go and ask them if they're going to support it. All these games were best of 3, and the competition really ramped up into Set 2. Amazing. Everybody is so good, not just the regulars, but the people who would drop in on occasion. So this time, my overall individual game win rate was around 50%, which is, kind of what you're looking at when you have stiff competition. Overall, I had mostly all like 2-1s. I had a couple of really bad drafts, though, that really knocked down my win percentage. But hey, that's the way it is. And in Set 2, I had the most luck with Bosk, and I'm really looking forward to see who I'm going to really gel with in draft in Set 3. So, draft basics quickly. I ascribe to the Baron method of evaluation, so bombs, ambush removal, opening, and nice-to-haves. Always be aware of the drafted leaders in your pod, so you know what you may be past and what you may not want to pass. Looking to the left and right of you. I tend to value high toughness leaders. There's quite a few of them in this set, actually, but with a caveat that some of them have extremely low power and doesn't really balance out. I'm looking at you now, let's say. I tend to limit my aspects during the leader draft, so if I try and go all in on villainy, I try and go all in on heroism if I can during the process, and then it just makes, to be honest, it makes your choice during the draft a lot easier if you cut out one entire aspect. Sometimes you can't. So I tend to lock in the the middle of the first pack, so about 7 cards in, I pretty much already know what I'm going to be playing, or what aspects, and I don't tend to drift from that. It's very rare that I have to actually pivot later on. The cards have to be very strong for me to be in that kind of position where I'm still second guessing my choices by card 7 or 8 in the draft. I don't do any splashing, meaning I don't take any cards that are out of aspect, or double resource. So again, not an aspect, or out of aspect. I find it's too restrictive, basically. Not too restrictive, but too difficult and almost never worth it. There are not cards in this set that I would look at and say I want to pay more for. I mean, sometimes that has to happen if you haven't drafted in the colors that you want. And again, they can always get resourced anyway. But try to stick to the aspects you're in and try and focus down on them so you don't have to end up with essentially dead cards. So overall, my guide here for the commons and uncommons, a rating of 1 is your best choice. Ones that I would take over a bad rare or a legendary or a value drafted rare or legendary in your pack. 2s are perfectly playable, ones that are going to make up the vast majority of the cards in your deck and have some utility. And then 3 are the ones you should probably try and avoid unless you absolutely have no choice. And that happens to everybody. So, we're going to start with our rank 1s. And we're going to look at Vigilance. And I only really came across 3 that I think are ones that I would choose over a middling or poor rare or legendary. So we have Providence Destroyer, Captain Typho, and Perilous Position. Providence, it's an 8 cost. It's in Vigilance Villainy. Exploit 2, though, pretty strong, brings it down to a 4. And then you have, it's a 5/7. And on attack, give an enemy space unit -2/-2 for this phase. So it's a really big body, can really limit the effect of things in space. And what I found is, much like a lot of the other sets, space is not as populated as is typical across games, unless you've gone hard into space. This one is pretty solid. It's an uncommon. And I would definitely take this one. It is a powerhouse in space. And the repeatable on-attack ability is very strong. Captain Typho, Vigilance in Heroism, costs 3. He's a 2/4. 1 played on attack, give a unit Sentinel for this phase. I mean, he might as well just give it to himself, give it to somebody with a big body. Mostly here, he's useful because he does have Trooper, which is not insignificant trait in this set. And you're more than likely, because you're playing on the heroic side, you're trying to generate clone trooper tokens. This way allows you to protect them to turn on coordinate. And Perilous Position, a cost of 3. When played, exhaust an attached unit, and that's good because it can affect leaders as well. And giving them a -2/-2. Also pretty strong. Brings down leaders down to a level that can be managed. So you can crack back on them with pretty much any unit. I saw this one in play a couple of times during the pre-release, and it was very solid. Rank 1 Command. We have the Magna Guard Wing Leader, so a 3/4 for 3 in space. It's a separatist action. Attack with a droid unit, then attack with another droid unit. Use this ability only once each round. So I will point out that is an action that does not require the card being exhausted. It's pretty good in space on turn 2 to have a 3/4 out there. But as an additional action, if you already have other droids out, you can stack their actions. And of course, more than likely, if you're in Command Villainy, you're playing with a lot of droids. So this one was a little surprised. I'm actually a little surprised that the action does not exhaust, but on a 3/4 unit, I guess that would just be a little too crippling. I think Magna Guard Wing Leader is going to turn out to be very strong. The Bactroid Spider Droid, that's an 8, but exploit 2, so it's coming on 4. And it has Ambush, which is what you're really looking forward to. There are only a couple of Ambush units across the various colors. I think this is probably the one that is more likely if you're able to play it on 4. Because again, you're in Command, and you're Separatist, and you want your droids. Then you are probably in a good position to be able to exploit this out on turn 3. if things work out your way. I think very strong. And that ambush, there is not very much of it, but it will trade up, remove a card from the battlefield, and you'll still be able to hang on to it because it has that strong 6. And the caveat there is, of course, you're always going to want to be exploiting for this card. And then lastly, Reprocess, which is a command villainy, cost a 3. Choose up to 4 units in your discard pile, put them on the bottom of your deck in random order, and create that many battle droid tokens. So this is late game, but avoids you getting decked out, for 1. And 2, anything that can create battle droids is fantastic. So I'm thinking about this as definitely a late game one. So 4 battle droids for 3 is a pretty good rate. In command, we still have we still have some more. Nameless Valor, 1, or cost 1. It's an attachment. It's gives +2/+2 to a token unit specifically, and gives it Overwhelm, which can really bump up your little guys. And in this set, you're going to have a lot of droids. You're going to have a lot of clone troopers. I don't know how really you could try and avoid that in deck building, but you're going to be using these tokens no matter what. This is pretty strong, especially on clone troopers, but even not too bad on your droids. Strategic Acumen, cost of 1, gives +2 hit points. Attach unit gains action, exhaust. Play a unit from your hand that costs mana for 1 less. So there is a cycle of cards that are ambassadors or representatives that all have very low power but very high body. Now I know why they're in the game, because they're there to turn on coordinate and also to allow for relatively cheap sources of exploit later on in the game. Some of them have expensive abilities, like to exhaust for 2, to do 2 damage to something, to do 2 damage to a base, or to have some effect on the board, but it's very expensive and they're not likely to stick around late in the game anyway. This gives them a little more survivability, and then giving them the ability to exhaust and play cheaper units from your hand, I think is pretty strong. I think in limited, it's going to be fairly valuable to do that. And of course, good old resupply. They reprinted it in a set, and it definitely, I think, it needed it. Resupply is still extremely strong if you are going to be in command. Ramp is important, especially that we have some leaders that are 7 costs in the set. Rank 1 for aggression and common uncommon. We have the 00M Series Officer, cost 2. It's in Villainy. It's a 2/1. When defeated, deal 2 damage to a base. So this assumes that you're going into, being very aggressive. But a 2/1 pretty much knocks out most early plays. It lines up well against troopers, for example. You can get some. You can just attack with it because if you want to get those 2 points in, and when it dies, who cares? It's also an excellent exploit target because when it's defeated, you do 2 damage to a base. So it benefits both yourself just by its very existence, and when it dies, has an effect. You can exploit it, has an effect. It's very strong. Savage Oppress, or Oppress. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He's a 7. He's 7/7. When played, you control fewer units, including this one, than an opponent. Ready this unit. So this is kind of, this unit's good if you are not particularly in a position to have a lot of droids. So, or have a lot of tokens out on your side. Or it's on the same turn that you've been able to do some excellent exploiting, and you still have the resources to be able to play Savage Oppress. So again, very, very late game, but 7/7 is pretty strong. Playing him under Dooku, he gains exploit 1, bring him out for 5. Pretty good. I played him in one of my pre-releases. Found him pretty strong. Not 100% consistent, but I think from a lot of the other uncommon and common aggression cards, he's pretty good, especially in villainy. So self-destruct, an event, costs 2 villainy, defeat a friendly unit. If you do, deal 4 damage to a unit. So let's say you've got something that's on its last legs. You know that it's not going to last very long. Heck, you can even combine it with Mr. Officer over here to get extra value out of it. Yeah. Or even if you've got something that's been perilous positioned. You just don't need it anymore. It doesn't work for you. It kind of non-bows with exploit, but there are some times when you just don't need to have the unit around anymore, and you just need to do 4 damage. So it's removal with a cost. It's not quite as good as open fire, but very little is. And then we have in heroic Soldier of the 501st. It's a 1 cost, 1/3, so it's got that survivability on turn 1 and raid 1. It's a strong unit. It's clone, it's trooper, it's republic. Good for setting up those turns when you want to turn on coordinate. Low altitude gunship. It's heroic. It's cost 6. It's a 6/5, so the survivability isn't too great. However, it does have overwhelm, and then when played, choose an enemy unit, deal 1 damage to it for each friendly republic unit. Now again, I said this isn't really about sealed, but I played this in the pre-release, and it did significant work. Because it can shoot into space, it's not restricted to ground or to space. Of course, remember, it triggers for itself because it is Republic. So I consider this one a win if you've got 3 Republic units out. And of course, it can always come out on the turn that your leader does if you're going to be in heroic to play your leader. And most of them are Republic, so I think you're probably in good shape. So minimum, you're going to trigger it for 2, which is not insubstantial, and maximum, well, who knows? Maybe your tokens got out of control and you have tons of clone troopers. It can be quite impactful if you can manipulate it properly. Then we have in our not neutral, but in our just general aggression, we have Aura Singh, a 7/6 underworld bounty hunter with overwhelm. When an enemy ground unit attacks your base, ready this unit. So one of the heaviest hitters in the set. Overwhelm is not insignificant here, especially if you just need to keep the board under control by clearing out tokens to turn off coordinate or turn off exploit capability. Very strong. Didn't see her in the pre-release, but I know people who ran her with great success. So definitely one to look for. Then we have a couple of events. We have Grenade Strike, cost 2, deal 2 damage to a unit. You may deal 1 damage to another unit in the same arena. Can't complain about this one, especially if you're on actually on the other side of the fence. If you're trying to take out clones, or you're trying to take out or do some damage to some droids, it's going to be pretty good. Finishing off a unit, pinging it so you can follow up with something. Removal is always good, and this one gives you a good amount of choice. I mean, there's always a chance too, if you have any grit units, you can just ping your own one to turn grit on. Bloodsport costs 3, deal 2 damage to each ground unit. So there aren't very many cards in this set that actually do damage to everything. It's like not really a board wipe, it's kind of a mini, but it can certainly set things up. Now, mind you, it's going to hurt your own stuff, So you have to time it properly, but you know, God forbid you're facing you're behind the 8 ball and you've got an opponent with a whole bunch of droids or troopers out. This solves your problem for sure. In cunning, we have the Elite P-38 Starfighter. It's a 3/2 for 3. It's a separatist vehicle and fighter, and when played, when defeated, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. So love those ones that actually come in and do something when they're going out. And a 3/2 in space is nothing to sneeze at. It's very solid. Infiltrating Demolisher. This one, I think, is actually quite remarkable. So if you are already in the exploit, or basically really focusing on exploit, which is not going to be hard to do when you're in villainy, this one can come out if you're able to, work things properly, possibly even on turn 1. So if you have the one card that gives you 2 battle droids, then exploit those 2 immediately, play out Infiltrating Demolisher. On turn 1, you have a 4/5 on the board, and this thing is just going to stick around. And Saboteur, also, there's no shields in this set, so you don't have to worry about that, but ignoring Sentinel and just pushing damage to base, very, very strong. And we have Zero the Hutt, a 5 cost. It's a 2/8, so that is a very big body for a 5 cost. When played, for each opponent, you may exhaust a unit that player controls. Nice. On attack, for each opponent, you may exhaust a resource that player controls. Yeah, so I think you're going to get a lot of use out of Zero. I don't know if it's a he or it's a she. I would have to look that up. I'm going to say they. They are more than likely going to be consistently interfering with the game plan of your opponent. And I do like the fact that this does say for each opponent. So having actually played some Twin Suns now and enjoying it greatly, Zero fits into any Underworld themed Twin Suns deck, because that for each opponent is extremely potent and can mess with everybody's turn. So that is a must include in Twin Suns. But we're not talking about Twin Suns. I think in this case, Zero is just going to consistently mess with your opponent by tapping down their resources, especially the when played. I mean, it really kind of protects Zero for that turn. And also, I should point out, it does shut down leaders because it does not specify non-leaders, which I think is quite good. Wartime Profiteering. Okay, so I played this one in a... I made these... Okay, I will point out, I made these predictions before I played any of the pre-releases, and hadn't really done a lot of force table testing with them. Due to I was playing Grievous Aggression, and stuff, of course, was dying quite rapidly and leaving play. So look at the top. Look at the cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of units that were defeated this phase, and not just yours, but both sides. Draw one, and then put the others on the bottom of your deck in a random order. This one was amazing for a 1 cost, because there are turns that when you're exploiting and you're killing stuff, or you're taking stuff out on the opponent's side, or your stuff is dying, you're basically ticking up during that phase. And you can actually dig pretty deep. And even if you dig down only 2 or 3, it's still getting you card draw. And draw is certain, even if 1 dies, right? You can still just draw. And draw is so important. And, let's put it this way. Uncommon in this game. I think this one is worth a look. I had 2 of them in the deck, and I'm pretty sure they were that was the card that allowed me to draw into wins during the event. On the doorstep, a 4 cost, it's in Villainy, create 3 battle droid tokens and ready them. My goodness. Talk about value. Especially if they don't die. So, let's say you're playing this last on that turn. You got your 3 out. You get to do something with them. You get to attack with them. Whatever. They're maybe gonna stick around. You might have 1 on the next turn still there if your opponent hasn't been able to deal with them. Then you use them for the exploit on the next turn. And it's just setting up value for future turns. It's very, very good. R2-D2, I know that it's been said that this is probably one of the strongest cards in the set. It's amazing that it's in uncommon. A 2 cost 2/4 Republic droid. You may discard a card from your hand. If you do, search the top 3 cards of your deck for a card and draw it. Yeah, just amazing. That kind of deck filtering, very, very important. And you're just replacing your card. You're not, you do have to discard the card, but if your hand has some garbage in it that you just don't want to use anymore, he comes in, and here you go. Get the card that you want. The top 3 is a pretty good rate of a choice. I think he's better than the previous R2. Although, of course, harder to fit in because he is in cunning. And he's a 2/4, so he's got a good body, and he's going to stick around. He's going to do some work. As a first turn play, R2-D2 almost every time. For our events, we have another set of events. We have Clear the Field. 2 cost, choose a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less, return it, and each enemy non-leader unit with the same name as it to their owner's hands. This is how you clear out droids and trooper tokens. You just wipe them out. See, I've had it done to me in a game, and it was not a good feeling to lose all of my tokens I was using to set up other things. It only cost a 2. That's pretty good, especially in a set in which you are going to be playing tokens. You really can't avoid it in limited. In Creative Thinking, which is a fun trick. 2 cost, exhaust a non-unique unit, create a clone trooper token. Very good. Can backfire sometimes. I played one game in which my opponent had 2 very low cost but unique characters, and I was like, oh, I'm going to play this. Well, didn't work. Although I just sort of realized that it doesn't necessarily fizzle. It's got 2 different things. One is not contingent on the other. It does exhaust a non-unique unit, then create that. It's exhaust, then create. So you can use this just to get another clone trooper. So basically getting a 2/2 for 2. But the exhaust part is, of course, the most valuable. Tri-Droid Suppressor, 7 cost, 4/7, exploit 2, so essentially only costs 3. When played, exhaust enemy ground unit. So that's pretty good. Again, an early big body droid to get out there to start doing work. And when playing, exhausting a ground unit, very strong. Couple more events. We have In Pursuit. Exhaust a friendly unit if you do exhaust an enemy unit, and that's cost 0. So, I don't mind exhausting my droid for your leader on a turn for 0 cost. Yes, please. And Political Pressure. Choose an opponent. You may discard a random card from their hand. If they don't, create 2 battle droid tokens. So it's very strong. I had it used against me, and it almost completely ruined my game plan. I had to, in many cases, just give them the droids. I couldn't afford to lose what I had in my hand. Then we have Villainy, and I will point out there were no rank 1 heroic or neutral cards that would fit the rank 1 category. Droid Starfighter, it's a 1/2 for 1, has Saboteur. Well, Sure, but all you really care about is the fact it's a droid, it's an early play, and you can exploit it later. But again, it is a 1/2, it can sit there, it can do some work. Over time, people will largely ignore it, but when the time is right, exploit it, and basically profit. The Hailfire tank, it's an 8 cost, 7/6, exploit 2, so you can bring it down to 4. So that is an extremely strong early play for the cost of only 2 droids. I played a few out in games so far, and I will never be sad to get such a big thing out. It's heading for 7. Very, very potent. And then we have Battle Droid Legion, a 9 cost, 6/5 exploit 2, so effectively it'll cost you 5. And then when defeated, create 3 Battle Droid tokens. So very strong. Replaces itself with 1 more, and you can basically follow up on the next turn or your next action with exploiting something else significant. I think very strong in the end. I would love to, say, play this card that I already exploited for with the Count Dooku unit in Aggression, but he's a rare, just to get the damage value, because 6 is pretty good, and then immediately get these tokens back out so you can refresh and get your board state back up. Okay, so now we move into rank 2. So we're going to look at our vigilance. This is going to be the vast bulk of what you're going to be getting in the game or getting during the draft. I think I'm only really going to go into real depth on a lot of these when it warrants it. So, Rune Hako, a 3/2 for 2 in Villainy. When played, if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, you may give a unit -1/-1 for this phase. So, pretty strong. Protects him. You're going to play this, of course, in Exploit. So, -1/-1. It seems small, but it could be significant, especially keeping him around, keeping something else alive for that turn. Yeah, a 3/2 stat line that early in the game, very, very solid, I'd say. Not a turn 1 play, but certainly a turn 2 or later. Wartime Trade Official, cost 2 in Villainy. It's a 1/3. When defeated, create a Battle Droid token. So, of course, you can even exploit him if you need to. He replaces himself with a Battle Droid. 1/3, okay stat line. He can stick to the board. He may not disappear immediately. 1 power, you don't really care. Again, you're either going to exploit him or you're going to attach other things to him just to get more use out of him. Calculating Magna Guard, a 3/4 for 3. When played, when a friendly unit is defeated, this unit gains Sentinel. So not only 1 played, which is very strong for an early Sentinel, but when a friendly unit is defeated. So again, you're going to be losing other, usually exploiting them, or they'll be taken out. He's got a heavy enough body that he's not going to completely disappear. It's just going to keep getting Sentinel over and over again. It may as well have been just printed with Sentinel, but that may have been a little too powerful. But it's almost always going to have it. Devastating Gunship, 5 cost in Villainy. It's a 3/5 with grit. There's not a lot of grit in this set. And then when played, defeat an enemy with 2 or less remaining hit points. So it can come in and just kill a token, or take out something that is almost on its last leg, and that helps again if you haven't been able to finish off, let's say a leader. You haven't quite been able to close the deal. This thing is the thing that can do it, and your opponent will want to get rid of it, or else it's just going to get bigger. Droid Echo Security, again in Villainy, costs 6, exploit 2, so it could cost as little as 2, and it's a 4/5 set with Sentinel. So a 4/5 with Sentinel that you could maybe bring out with only 2, very, very potent. And of course, yes, I know, picture with shields, There's no shields in this set, so maybe we'll have other kinds of droidecas later on that actually do. Oh well, such is the game. It's a good thing it has a big body. Then on the heroism side, we have Outspoken Representative for 2. It's a 0/3. While you control another Republic unit, this unit gains Sentinel. When defeated, create a Clone Trooper token. So it is pretty much exactly like a wartime trade official. It just can't really punch. But the fact is that you're more than likely, not right away, but by turn 2, you will end up with another Republic unit. It's going to have Sentinel turned on. It takes a hit and pops out a Clone Trooper, which is important for your coordinate gameplay. A Kashyyyk Defender, a 2 cost in Heroic, a 0/5 with Grit. When played, heal up to 2 damage from another unit and deal that much damage to this unit, basically turning on his Grit. So it essentially becomes a 2/3 for 2. You're not really playing this one on turn 1 if you can help it. Turn 2 or later, I think it does fairly well into the late game, especially if you're trying to keep your leader healthy. I don't mind this one at any point in the curve. 41st Elite Corps, 3 cost, 3/3 coordinate. It gets +3 with coordinate. I mean, it's just solid as a 3/3 for 3. Coordinate, I've discovered that it's not as hard. Like, I was kind of down on coordinate. I still don't think it's as good as exploit, but that is not that hard to turn on. Now the problem is it really doesn't have anything else going for it, but it of course does have Republic, Clone, and Trooper, which are important traits for it to have. So this one, it's very middle of the road, and it's the coordinate opportunity that bumps it up from what would normally, it's always going to be a 2, no matter what it is. It just, moves it up a bit in my estimation because of coordinate. Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite in Heroic. It's 5 cost. It's 4/6, so good body in space. When played on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and 2 damage to another space unit. Yeah, anything that has an impact when it comes in. It's going to impact itself, of course, but it's that 2 damage, the better rate of doing damage out. So it can hit above its weight by just hitting itself, hitting its something that's attacking into for 2. So it can basically take out something that's that has a 6 health like itself. So an Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite trying to kill another Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite, they can do it on the turn it comes out. So, not on the turn it comes out, but it'll come out or be able to do it on the next turn. But it will also be destroyed. So, but it's impactful when it comes in, and it's a may clause. You don't have to do it, which is nice. And also Jedi and Republic, which are not insignificant traits. A Knight of the Republic, 6 costs, which is kind of high for a 4/7. But when this unit is attacked, create a Clone Trooper token. So there aren't too many ways. There are cards that give Sentinel in this set, so I think this is more of a constructed possible card. If you put like I'm honestly forgetting the name of the card that actually grants the attachment that grants things Sentinel. It's got a big body. Comes out kind of late though, but it would be nice to be able to get this. It's a threat on the board that has to be dealt with. It's a 7. And then every time it's attacked, it creates a Clone Trooper token. So they either have to deal with it all at once, and you still get a Clone Trooper token in response, or risk having to just ping it over time, or with attacking units. So it's an interesting one. Hello there. It's basically removal. Choose a unit that entered play this phase, gets -4/-4. There's the conditional part, which is why it only costs 3. So it's a good reaction if you're going second, for sure, but it's very strong removal. Compassionate Senator, again, another one is part of that cycle of low-cost senators or advisors or whoever's that you can attach other cards onto to get more benefit out of them, or even in late game. So this one has an action 2, spend 2 resources, exhaust, heal 2 damage from a unit or base. So won't be sticking around long, but might just, if you have those extra resources lying around to be able to use, why not use it with a Compassionate Senator, because it certainly isn't attacking anybody. Warrior Drone, a 1/4 for 1. I mean, that's a pretty good rate, and pretty plain, and is there to pretty much just get exploited or to set up coordinate. So it works on both sides of the conflict. Royal Guard Attaché, a 2-cost 2/5 with basically it's essentially a 2-cost 2/3 because when played deal 2 damage to this unit. Trade Federation Shuttle, a 2/3 for 3 when played. If you control a damaged unit, create a battle droid token. So it might be a little hard to pull off, but free battle droid token, yes please. Well, not free, but conditionally free. Not that hard to do. And Daughter of Dathomir, a 3/5 for 4, which is an okay cost. When this unit is undamaged, it gains Restore 2. So it basically forces your opponent to put some damage on her, or else they do risk that Restore. You're certainly not wanting to attack into something. I mean, getting Restore 2 once is fine. An attack of 3 is okay. I think she would be definitely busted if you didn't have that clause that she needs to be undamaged to do what she wants to do. But she has Force trait, which is, again, not insignificant. Continuing on, Vulture Interceptor Wing, cost of 4. It's a 3/3 on attack, give an enemy -1/-1, so it can sort of hit above its weight, and it doesn't restrict it to space or ground. Falchion Ion Tank, a 6-cost 4/6, so, expensive, but there aren't too many Sentinels in this set. I really, I think they're required in colors. If you don't have any in this one, you could be in real trouble because there are some real aggro strategies with some of the leaders. You want to have that to be able to keep them from smashing your base over and over again. Multi-troop transport, a cost of 7, exploit 2 though, so could be as low as 3. It's a 3/6 on attack, create a battle droid token. So if you get this one out early and keep attacking with it, and you will get some value because, again, it's got a body of 6. It's not going away anytime soon. You're just going to be continually creating battle droids, and that is just straight value when you're just playing the game. Have a drink here, getting kind of dry. All right. Unshakable Will, 4-cost upgrade. Attached unit gains Sentinel. And then it's a +2/+2. So, this is the kind of thing you want to put on some of those officials and so on. It's kind of a high cost, but the Sentinel is very strong, and there are some leaders. And this, I'm thinking about this as the kind of card you want to put on a leader. Or just one page before, Knight of the Republic, making into a 6/9 Sentinel, and every time it's attacked, and of course it has Sentinel now, then it's going to pop out a Clone Trooper. I mean, it's a nice to have. I think having this in any blue deck is going to be strong. I probably would save it for the leader to keep them around a little while longer if they had a worthwhile effect on the game. Yeah, again, a little expensive, but getting Sentinel in this particular set, I think, is very important. 2-cost event, Grievous Reassembly, heal 3 damage from unit, create a battle droid token. I mean, yeah, sure. Pretty plain, but I think it's pretty strong. Disruptive Burst, 3 cost. Give each enemy unit -1/-1 for the phase. So you're thinking, as you would see here in the illustration, that hey, zap all those droids out of existence. So yes, that's very good. But also just play with the numbers a bit if you have a lot of stuff to do on that turn. You want to prevent damage, or you want to be able to knock things out by treading up into them. Disruptive Burst is going to be pretty good. Death by Droids, 5 cost. Defeat a unit that costs 3 or less. Create 2 battle droid tokens. So basically, it's removal on top of create battle droids. Now, 5 might be a bit late for that counter removal for a cost 3 or less. There might not be a lot of cost 3 or less out there, but if you definitely need more battle droids, using it on even a token on the other side, that will be perfectly fine. And then we have the reprint of Vanquish. Defeat a non-leader unit, 5. Always want to have access to some kind of removal, because there are some real hitters in this set. Moving on to rank 2 for command, in common and uncommon. Confederate Courier, it's a 2/1 for 2. When defeated, create a battle droid token. Not much more needs to be said about this. It basically counters a lot of early plays in space, because it can hit pretty hard. And then, of course, gives you some benefit when it... sorry for that. When it leaves play. So, again, it's a very strong unit. I know this one has been highly regarded for constructed as well. So, for such a simple thing, it's going to be pretty potent. A 4/3 for 3 is the Droid Commando, Separatist Droid Trooper. So, it's got a lot of really important traits. When you control another Separatist unit, this unit gains ambush. So that's not going to be hard to do. You're more than likely going to be on the exploit game plan. You're going to have a droid token out there. This thing gets ambush. Too bad it's conditional, because it is only a 4/3. But sometimes you just need to make sure something on the other side is dead. And it lines up pretty well with, let's say you want to take out just a trooper on the other side, and you're still alive at that point. Yeah, I think that one's pretty strong. Kraken, cost 5. It is in Villainy. It's a 2/5. When played, create 2 battle droid tokens. Wow, that's a lot of value. And then on attack, give each friendly token unit +1/+1 for this phase. So, I mean, it's very likely that you're going to be able to get at least 1 turn out of them. Yeah. The on attack for friendly units, that assumes that you're going to have any battle droid tokens left around. But no, I think he's going to be a staple in those kind of decks. He's very potent. Admiral Trench, 7 cost in Villainy, a 5/5, exploit 1. So basically bringing him down to a 5. When played, return up to 3 units that were defeated this phase from your discard pile to your hand. So... I don't know how effective he's going to be. I mean, it could be that you're exploiting not a token, because you can't get that back. But if you're exploiting some kind of low cost, but relatively valuable card, then exploiting that and then bringing it back to your hand on the same turn is pretty strong. So you're never really going to want to play him without that exploit ability and exploiting something that is not just a token. So we'll see. I'm kind of on the fence about him. He's very much at the low end of rank 2, but there's always a chance that he could drop to 3. But we'll see. Separatist Super Tank, 9 cost, 8/8, exploit 3. So essentially, you could bring this down to, let's see if the math in my head works out. You could bring it down to a 3 cost. Oh, so sorry. So bringing it out as a 3 cost, If you're so, I mean, things really have to lean up for this, or line up for this. But my goodness, there is a good there's a good chance early enough in the game, if everything works out for you, that you on turn 3 you could have an 8/8 on the board, which is going to be extremely difficult for your opponent to deal with. On the heroism side, we have Echo, the second version of Echo, so the new version, prior to the Bad Batch. He's a 2/2 for 2 with coordinate. He gets a +2/+2. So even if if you need to play a 2, that's fine. He's a Republican clone and trooper, so he fits all those briefs. Nothing terrible about him, but his coordinate definitely is a bit of an upside. Republic tactical officer, a 2-cost. Heroic, he's a 1/4. When played, you may attack with a Republic unit. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. So we all know that effects like that are very strong in this game to basically punch above your weight. I think he's actually going to be a very good one. Advanced Recon Commando, 3-cost in Heroic. He's a 4/3 with Overwhelm. Yeah, pretty much bog standard. Overwhelm can come in handy, especially if you're just trying to take things out. Yeah, the thing is, of course, the problem with the Recon Commando is it comes out, but it doesn't have an immediate impact. It's not until the next turn that he can actually do something. So he may not survive, depending on what happens. But otherwise, is a 4/3. A 4/3 for 4 is pretty much a standard rate. We have Shak Ti, a 3/4 for 4, which is a pretty bad rate actually for a unit like this. However, they are Force and Jedi and Republic. Each friendly token gets a +1 hit point boost, so that's pretty good, and can keep things under control. Each friendly unit token gets +1. On attack, create a clone trooper token. My God, I faced a deck like this that had Shak Ti, and man, she demands an answer. So 3/4 is not great. She's able to be knocked out pretty quickly, and once she's on the board, you have to do it to stop her from actually getting the clone token train going. But if you're playing her and you're able to get value over and over and over and over again, just amazing. It's a fantastic card. Pelta Supply Frigate, cost of 5 in Heroism. It's a 3/6 Republic vehicle capital ship with coordinate. When played, create a clone trooper token. So again, big body and space is great. There's a good chance by turn 5 or turn 4 that you will have enough out there to coordinate. It's of course much better value because when you have coordinate on, but a 3/6 in space is okay. It's got a good enough body on it. Synchronized Strike is a tactic. It's the cost of 2. Deal damage to an enemy unit equal to the number of units you control in the arena. So, was just thinking about this one. So, I don't think you're really going to get any more than maybe 3 out of this one. Think it's strong enough. It has potential, but in its cost, I think it's fairly cost effective. So I mean, on the card itself, you've got the picture of three Jedi. I think that's really the most you're going to be able to muster out of this one in this format. People will learn pretty quickly that they need to keep the board state under control by getting rid of all the tokens that are out there. So Magical Christmas Land is that it does 2 damage for 2 resources, but there's a chance, of course, that you can, if you get it up to 3 or even 4, then you're golden. Obedient Vanguard. So this one's just a single command, so neither heroic nor villainy. A 1/1 for 1 with raid 1, and when defeated, you may give a trooper unit +2/+2. So, well, here you go. If you're able to actually attack with thing, great. If you have to exploit it, and you have something else on the board that's ready to go, another trooper, like another droid, then there you go. Like, it just transfers its ability. It's there simply to perish. I mean, that's the way it is with all the separatist droids. That's what they're there for. Rate 1's okay. A 2/1 for 1 is an okay rate. But yeah, you're looking mostly just to exploit this thing on a turn in which you can get some value out of it with another trooper. Steadfast Sander, another one, part of that cycle. It's a 0/4 for 1 with an action of 2 cost. Attack with a unit, it gets +2 for the attack. So, great, because it's not really going to be doing anything else, but a prime candidate for those kinds of cards that actually have another effect on it to cost less, like when we looked at previously in Vigilance. Coruscant Guard, a 3/2 for 2, which is an okay rate and pretty typical. Republic Clone and Trooper with a coordinator has Ambush. Ambush is extremely valuable in this. I'm still fine with running a card like this in late game. You know it's going to die, but that's what it's there for. Ryloth Militia, a 2/3 for 2 with raid 1, which is pretty good, pretty standard. Nothing really, tremendously overwhelming about it. The raid 1 though is pretty good, and it has Trooper, which is again an important trait. For 3, we have the 501st Liberator. It's a 3/3 for 3. When played, if you control another Republic unit, you may heal 3 damage from your base. So that's a really good rate. And Republic Clone and Trooper, and you will more than likely be controlling other Republics because you are in command and have played this card. So that 3 healing, it's pretty good, especially when it's on a body like that. Very bog standard kind of card with the Republic. Arc 170, a 3/4 for 3. Not much to say really about that. Doesn't do anything. Subjugating Starfighter, a 3/3 for 4 with Ambush. So Ambush in space, still pretty valuable. When played, if you have the initiative, create a Battle Droid token. So that's what elevates this one. Both Ambush and, of course, played are pretty important. This one's not going to stick around on the board. Nice to have, really. But Ambush, more than likely, is not going to survive that attack. But I'm still like to see this one in space. B2 Legionnaires, cost of 5. It's a 5/4 Sentinel with Overwhelm. So that's an interesting one. Okay, never turn your nose up at a Sentinel. But that little extra Overwhelm in there, that's pretty good. If they're already going to go down, they won't survive a crackback. I mean, there's sometimes that you want to, but in this particular case, I think it's okay. Again, a 5/4 Sentinel that probably will kill most things or do a significant amount of damage to anything that runs into it. That's fine. And if it gets to crackback, that's even better. Clone Commander Cody, cost of 5. He's a 4/4, so he's very under the rate. He has Overwhelm, which may not really matter unless he's attacking into droids, so it sort of thematically makes sense. Coordinate, each other friendly unit gets +1/+1 and Overwhelm. So, yeah, really boosts up your clones, your clone trooper tokens, and other cards, but it requires Coordinate. Personally, I think that if he did not have Coordinate as a clause and didn't have, I think I would rather have seen him without the Overwhelm himself, but no Coordinate, so other friendly token gets +1/+1 and Overwhelm. I think may have been a better way to balance him, but we'll see. Squad Support and Upgrade, cost of 3, attached to a non-leader unit. Attached unit gains, this unit gets +1/+1 for each trooper unit you control. So, interesting. Not entirely sure about this one because, again, with the board state, since you want to keep things clear, and your opponent wants to keep your board state pretty clear, not entirely sure if this is going to be very useful. And it's, of course, going to vary throughout the game quite a bit. So I think it has high potential, but it might be a magical Christmas land thing. It may actually end up being relegated to, I think it's at the bottom of rank 2. It might actually drop to a rank 3. Take captive. Well, not much captive going on in this set. There's some. Cost of 3. It's been a reprint from the last set. I mean, it's pseudo removal, especially if you can get on something really big or clear out something out of the way. It's risky. I'm not a big fan of it, but I wouldn't say it's a terrible card. I think that it's definitely something to consider. O.C. Sobek, 6 cost, 3/6 with exploit 3, so essentially it could come out for free. And in when played, this unit captures an enemy non-leader ground unit with a cost equal to or less than the number of resources paid to play this unit. So, if you were trying to, exploit your way home, or don't know where that came from, you could exploit him out for basically 0, which is pretty potent. A free cost like that, and he's a 3/6, yeah. Snatch something up, hold on to him, but of course you'd have to have with a cost, so you'd have to be a 3 or less. So yeah, I don't see it. Even if you use it to remove a token off the board, there is a good chance that you can bring him a 3/6 out for nothing. That's pretty good. Yeah. Unlikely you'll get the full exploit, but, also, I think potentially very strong. Rank 2 aggression. So we have Confederate Tri-Fighter, 3 cost in villainy. A 3/3 bases can't be healed. So, okay, sure. In limited, I think that, again, is of, well, shall we say, limited utility. I know that some constructed players are really up on this particular card. May be better than, let's say, playing Wolf in constructed to stop that healing against aggression decks. Separatist droid vehicle, so it is both a separatist and a droid, so which is fine. Yeah, that's a pretty good rate. A 3/3 for 3 in space, nothing to complain about. Bases can't be healed. Just a little extra bonus. B1 attack platform, a 3 cost in villainy. It's a 5/2 separatist droid and trooper. If you are able to keep this thing alive, and it won't stay alive for long, hitting for 5 is very potent. I'll take them. For sure. I mean, it's certainly better than, a 3/2 for 3. It doesn't really do anything. But there is that threat, and it requires an immediate response from your opponent, or it's just going to dig in for a significant amount of damage. Might only get 1 attack in, or basically clears the way of something on the other side. So, yeah. Asajj Ventress. A 4 cost, 2/4, so a very bad rate, to be honest. But exploit 2, so it could come out for free. On attack, if you've attacked with another separatist unit this phase, this unit gets +3 for this phase. So, I'm not 100% convinced. She may be worse than I think. I think she's at the low end. But she is force, and force is not insignificant. Could play her out for nothing for a 2/4. That could happen as early as turn 1. But, of course, the problem is she doesn't get to attack when she comes in, and if there's no other separatists out there, because at that point you've already exploited them, you may not get the kind of value. So she's very glass cannon-y. I kind of feel that she's more of a late game card to be able to hit for 5/4. We'll see. I'm not, again, I'm not too bullish on her. I'm not going to draft her, but at the same time, she's going to be hard to pull off to get her full value, I think. Squadron of Vultures, exploit 3. So basically, so much like other cards in this cycle, you could exploit this one out for free and have a 5/4 in space. That's very, very strong. Anakin's Interceptor, a 2 cost. This is heroic. It's a 2/3, so an okay rate on its own. While your base has 15 or more damage on it, this unit gets +2. It's Jedi, it's Republic. Obviously meant to be played with Anakin. But, you know, I mean, it's a 2/3 in space, which is fine for 2. And with a little bonus there for the +2 damage. Not gonna turn it down. Batch Brothers, great card. Actually may be a rank 1. We'll have to see how things go. 3 cost, 2/1, so a bad rate, but it creates another clone trooper token. So if you absolutely necessarily need to turn on Coordinate, you definitely want to have Batch Brothers. Senatorial Corvette, a 5/4 for 5 in space. Saboteur, and when defeated, each opponent discards a card from their hand. So that's what elevates it from a really mediocre card to something that is quite potent. So, you know, Saboteur is also very strong in space. So these could turn out to be more valuable than I think. They're good. I don't think they're fantastic, but I think there's a lot of potential there. Disaffected Senator, yet another one of these Senator Advisors, Ambassadors. 1 cost, 0/4. You want to exploit him, go right ahead. You want to put some attachments on him, go right ahead. Its action, not very valuable early in the game unless you're really bricked out and don't have anything to do with your resources. But would be perfectly fine late game, but more than likely just going to be a body that you're using to prop up, coordinate, or to exploit. Dendup's Loyalist, a 2/3 with Overwhelm, a really plain character. It is, however, a trooper. Overwhelm on a 2/3 seems very weak, but in an environment that you might be hitting droids, pushing through like 1 point of damage is perfectly fine. Anyway, if you can get them boosted up, they become even more potent to just keep pushing damage through. I was pleasantly surprised how it performed in the decks that I played during the pre-release. It did its job. It's just a 2/3, or sorry, a 2 cost 2/3, and sometimes Overwhelm comes in handy. Vanguard Droid Bomber, a 2/2 for 2, Separatist and Droid, so important there. When played, if you control another Separatist unit, deal 2 damage to an enemy base. Very good, very aggro. You know what you're doing. You know what your game plan is when you're playing a card like this. But also, even if you don't have another Separatist unit, which you more than likely probably will, pushing the extra little damage, yeah, impressive. Bold Recon Commando, a 3/4 for 3. It's really nothing exciting stat line, but it has Saboteur. So you absolutely need a Republic or a Trooper or a clone. There you go. Relentless Rocket Droid, 4 cost, Separatist Droid Trooper, so all the best keywords, or sorry, traits. When you control another trooper unit, this unit gets +2. So it's okay on its own, but of course it improves drastically when you have other troopers, which you're more than likely going to have. And then we have Heavy, a 4/4 for 4, so, you know, not the greatest stat line. But Coordinate Raid 2, and when defeated, deal 1 damage to each enemy ground unit. So I was caught out a couple of times by this one, especially with the when defeated part. So he can definitely hit above his weight. If you have Coordinate turned on, you are essentially, if it dies to something that you're trying to clear out, it'll be a 6. You're essentially going to be doing 7 upon its death. Real sort of kamikaze action there. Heavy Persuader Tank, 7 cost. Separatist Droid, exploit 2, so it can be as cheap as 4. When played, you will deal 2 damage to a ground unit. So this is sort of opposite the Republic ship that's name is escaping me at the moment that does some damage. This one is just guaranteed 2 damage on the ground. So if you can get it out for 4 and it's a 6/5, I have no complaint with that. Old access codes, when played, if an opponent controls more units than you do, draw a card. Adds 1 power. That's fine. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But, you know, there's a good chance that if you get behind, being able to draw a card off of playing old access codes is perfectly fine. Clone Cohort, a 2 cost, attaching against Raid 2, and when defeated, create a Clone Trooper token. So plus 2, and then get that unit back if it dies. I think that's extremely good rate if used on another. I'm just blanking all of a sudden. Replacing itself, I think, is very potent and very important in this game. So it can hit above. It's like hit above his weight, and then replace itself when it dies. So, and we have Daring Raid. I mean, no one can turn up their nose really at doing 2 damage to a unit or base to close things out for a 1 cost. Grim Resolve, attack with a non-linear unit, it gains grit, and as we've seen, there's a lot of big units with big bodies in this set, so this can catch people off guard by suddenly turning on grit. Yeah, pretty strong, especially since it gets grit for the duration of that attack. Doesn't work on leaders, but that's fine. Otherwise, I think it would be extremely broken. Strategic Analysis, draw a 5. So normally I don't like these cards, and this one may actually be worse than I think. Cost of 5 to draw 3 cards. 3 is a lot, but 5 is also a lot. I may have to revise my opinion on this one down to a rank 3, but for now I think it's okay for a card draw. If you on 5, if you really are stuck and have nothing else to do, drawing those cards is fine. I know why it's in here. I know it's to probably try and power up previously a little, but I don't think that's going to be anywhere near enough. Okay, moving on to Cunning. The Soulless One, a 1/2 for 1 in space. On attack, you may exhaust a friendly droid unit or General Grievous. If you do, it gets +2 for the attack. Very solid. It's if you've got if you want to push more damage, I mean, there's absolutely no problem, exhausting a token on a turn to be able to get to the Soulless One to do more. Or if Grievous isn't particular, if you have him as your leader and he's not particularly doing anything that turn, you're not putting trying to put additional damage or Sentinel on another droid, then this works perfectly fine. Tactical Droid Commander, a 4/4 for 5, but exploit 2, so essentially could come out for 1. When you play another Separatist unit, you may exhaust a unit that costs the same as or less than the played unit. So I think it's fine. That effect probably is not going to be all that relevant, but being able to get a 4/4 out potentially for 1 early in the game, very strong. Wolfpack Escort, in Heroic, when played, you may return a friendly non-leader, non-vehicle unit to its owner's hand. There's not too many interplay abilities, but good for pinging things back to your hand if you want to get more use out of them. And there I'm looking at Plo Koon. If Plo Koon has survived, but he's on low health, you can always Wolfpack Escort, go Plo Koon back in again. There's lots of cards like that. And 2/1 for stat line is fine. It's Republic. It's not particularly fancy. So, and again, the clause is may, which is very good, which is better than Pirate to Starfighter from the first set because you were not given an option. Padme Amidala, A 2 cost to 1/4 and on coordinate on attack, give an enemy unit -3 for this phase. So that's actually, she's actually not that bad. She's going to stick around on the board. She is Republic, which is important, and she's there basically as a coordinated facilitator. I feel. I did get some use out of her when I've used her. She's not spectacular, but she's also not terrible. Plo Koon. Now, okay. I know that Plo Koon is regarded as one of the best cards in the set, especially in Cunning. I have him for now in rank 2, but there's a very good chance that he could be bumped up to rank 1. So he's a 5 cost, 3/6 with ambush. So ambush is important. He also has Force, Jedi, and Republic. But he has coordinate raid 3. So the only thing I'm not a big fan of is that coordinate clause. But if he didn't have coordinate clause, he would be absolutely busted in this format. So there is a good chance that I have underestimated his value, and he actually could go up to a rank 1. I've been pleased with him so far, so perhaps I've been too harsh on poor Plo Koon. Then we have the Republic Attack Pod, a 6 cost, 6/7. You control 3 or more units. This unit costs 1 less to play. Not fantastic, but essentially, which is going to be the case, though it could be a 6/7 for 5, and that's not going to be very hard to pull off. Clone Dive Trooper, a 1 cost, 2/1 with coordinate. While this unit is attacking, the defender gains -2. The only reason why this card is on this list is because, well, it turns on coordinate. That's really about it. There's not much else I can say about that one. Independent Senator, a 0/4 for 1 with an action. Spend 2 resources and exhaust a unit with 4 or less power. So that's a good control piece, and okay in late game, but again, more of a vehicle for either keeping coordinate up or something that you can exploit later on. Favorable Delegate, a 1/5 for 2, so amazing body. It will stick around. When played, draw a card. Amazing. Love card draw. Also gives my opponent card draw. So that's fine. He's been okay. I've absolutely no problem with him. Drew. Okay, so sorry, just had a bit of aphasia there for a second. So Hotshot V-Wing, a 2/3 for 2. Not much to say about this one. It's spaceship. It just fills a slot. It's not terrible. It's not great. It's just there. Lux Bonteri, 2 cost, 3/2. So okay. Separatist, when an opponent plays a card, if that opponent paid less than the card's cost to play it, ready or exhaust a unit. Really there to go up against or to deal with or counter exploit. But I don't know. I don't think that's really going to happen that often. I didn't see it happen that much so far, but I mean, these are very early days, so. But yeah, a 3/2 for 2. That's fine. Freelance Assassin. A 4/2 for 3. Okay. Doesn't have ambush though, but what it does have is when played, you may spend 2 if you do deal 2 damage to your unit. So, an okay card. Play it if you have to. Doesn't really fit in here too much because it does have Underworld. If you have to pay it for 5, maybe on turn that's setting up some damage on on the leader or something at some point, or just taking out a clone trooper. I mean, it's costly to do it, so that's why it's not rated any higher. If it didn't have that much power, it would be rated a lot lower too. Sanctioner Shuttle, say 2/3 for 3. Coordinate, when played, this unit captures an enemy non-leader unit that control that cost 3 or less. There's a lot of these 3 or less clauses. That's not hard to do when you're already on turn 3. So, but it's also not that hard to take out either. And I will point out it requires coordinate. So I look at this more as just a ship, a 2/3 for 3. It's unlikely it's going to capture. It can, but I think basically if you just need a spaceship, that's the spaceship you're going to. Hidden Sharpshooter, 4/3 for 4. Republic Clonian Trooper, and it has Ambushed, which is kind of funny considering it's a 4/3. It's not usually going to survive the ambush, so it wasn't very good at being hidden. I don't know why it's a sharpshooter when the thing doesn't survive. I would think that kind of name or templating would go into something else that you like, exhaust this to do 1 damage to something. Geonosis Patrol Fighter, cost of 5, and it's the 3/2. Exploit 2, so it could cost a 1. Exploit 2 could come out for 1, so that's a pretty good rate. When played, you may return a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less to its owner's hand. Yeah, okay. I don't know how often you're going to be able to do that, but it's still a potent extra ability. And it costs a 1 for a 3/2. Okay, with that kind of effect, we'll see. I'm not entirely convinced, but seems fine. Droid Cohort, a upgrade of +1/+1 for 1. Attached unit gains 1 defeated. Create a battle droid token. So put this on your battle droid dies, make another battle droid. Give us a little bit of a little boost. I think it's a pretty fair rate for what it does. Then we have On Top of Things, an upgrade, a 2-cost upgrade, +2 power. When played, attached unit can't be attacked this phase unless it has Sentinel. And it's pretty good when you're trying to set something up and keep your valuable, powerful unit from getting taken out. I think that's okay. Breaking In, a 2-cost event as a tactic. Attack with a unit gets +2 and Saboteur. This game I have played, this card I have played in a couple of games, and it basically won me the games. That +2 is not insignificant, and you get to attack with it right away. It's like the other one that gives grit, but I think this one actually is probably a lot better. So you can't necessarily rely on grit. The +2 here plus Saboteur, very, very strong to close out games. May actually be stronger than that. We'll see. And Prisoner of War. It's 4-cost. A friendly unit captures an enemy non-leader, non-vehicle unit. If the enemy unit costs less than the friendly unit, create 2 battle droid tokens. I haven't got this one to go off yet. It is a much better card than Capture. It doesn't. It's like Capture. It doesn't have that clause where it restricts the cost. But getting the 2 battle droids out of it, like, it's more expensive than Capture, but the potential to get the 2 battle droids out are pretty solid. Again, haven't seen it in play yet. May actually be worse than I think, but I think it's pretty solid middle rank sort of card. Rank 2 for a Villainy. Sewer Battle Droid. It's a 4/3 for 3. It's Separatist. It's a droid. It's a trooper. It's just there. Just a hard hitting, just bog standard. This is what you're gonna fill up your deck with sort of card. Dwarf Spider Droid. A 4-cost 3/4 with grit. Probably better than you think. Use it to take out a trooper. Now it's a 5/3, and it needs to have something answered, or have some answer. Your opponent has to have some answer to it, or you're not going to do so well. Patrolling AAT, a 4/5 for 5 with Sentinel. Again, there aren't too many Sentinels in this set. The more, the better. Separatist keyword. Other than that, Pretty standard. Droid deployment, 2 cost, create 2 battle droid tokens. So this actually may be even better. If you're able to play this one on turn 1 and then play into one of the other 2 cost ones, 4 cost with exploit 2s, it's 100% worth playing the 2 cards to do it. But this sets you up very well for future turns. Even if you get one taken out on the next turn, this is probably, especially good if you have the initiative. You keep them protected and available for your next turn to be able to exploit something out. So maybe one of the best cards in the set, actually, especially for exploit. We shall see. This one actually has potential to move up to a rank 1. Rank 2, Phase 1 Clone Trooper, a 3/2 for 2. Phase 2 Clone Trooper, a 3/2 for 3. With ambush, though, so an early ambush can be valuable sometimes. Armored Saber Tank, a 5/5 for 6. This thing has saved my bacon on a number of occasions, so I'm perfectly happy to see it. ATTE Vanguard, 8 cost, 6/9 with Restore 3. That Restore 3 is significant. When defeated, create 2 Clone Trooper tokens. I'm not unhappy to play this one at turn 8 if I have to. That Restore 3, very strong. Maybe a little late, though, at 8 to get it out, but who knows. Heroes on both sides. Choose up to 1 Republic unit and 1 Separatist unit. Give each chosen unit +2/+2 and Saboteur for this phase. So, in a pinch, it says up to. So, you don't necessarily... Magical Christmas Land, if you happen to have, let's say, and it can happen quite easily, a droid and a trooper on your side, you give them both +2/+2 and Saboteur, very strong for that turn. Otherwise, it's going to be a 2/2 and Saboteur for 2, which, you know what? Perfectly good and very similar to, in a way, to Breaking In on the same cost, but not limited to Cunning. So, if you're in Heroic, I think Heroes on both sides is tremendously good. Sword and Shield Maneuver, 2 cost. Each friendly trooper unit, raid 1 for this phase. Each friendly Jedi unit, Sentinel for this phase. So, I'm not 100% convinced on this one. We'll see what happens with it. If it turns out to be playable, it's got some interesting templating. If you just really want to push damage at some point, then there you go. And keep your troopers alive and redirect it to a Jedi. So certainly not an early gameplay, but a later one seems perfectly fine. Drop in, fantastic card. This is the opposite, of course, of droid deployment. But drop in, 4 cost, create 2 clone trooper tokens. Nothing fancy, but very, very strong. Sets up, of course, any coordination shenanigans you want to try and pull off. Republic Commando, a 3 cost, 2/5, coordinate, Saboteur. Good body, so there's a good chance it's going to stick around for you to be able to get Saboteur. Doesn't hit particularly hard, but Republic Clone and Trooper are not insignificant traits to have. For our neutral cards, Headhunter Squadron, it's a 1/4. It's really kind of boring, but it'll stick around in space, and if you're trying to coordinate, it's very good for it. Volunteer Soldier, not really surprised this was reprinted in this set because of so many troopers. So more than likely, this is always going to come out as for 2, as a 2/3 with raid. Can't really complain too much about it. I think it's probably better in this set than it was in the first one. Holdout Blaster, I really think this is a fun little card. A cost of 1, +1 on its power, and when played, you may have the attached unit deal 1 damage to a ground unit just to ping something. Ping! Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. Little boost to power as well. And private manufacturing, 2 cost, draw 2 cards. If you control no token units, put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order. So, yeah, more than likely you're going to have the token units, so then you won't have to lose anything from your hand. And draw 2 cards for 2 is actually a pretty good rate, if you absolutely have to do it, and you have no other option earlier in the game. So now we're down to rank 3. So we have Lethal Crackdown. So these are the ones that I would generally always avoid. Lethal Crackdown, cost of 4, defeat a non-leader unit, deal damage to your base equal to that unit's power. I don't see, especially in Villainy, where this is really going to help you at all. It's overcosted if you're just trying to make little things go away. It's a really bad rate. If you're spending it to get rid of something it's a bad rate at any point, unless it's extremely high. Well, even then, I think it's pretty bad. Yeah, I can't see myself ever playing this one. It's too risky, and I don't see the value proposition here at all. Especially also since it says non-leader. It's too restricted to be any good. Duchess's Champion. It's a 1/8 for 4, but it is in double blue, so you're likely never playing this. That 8 body is significant. In double blue decks, and it's a Mandalorian, I think there's a place for it in the future. While an opponent controls 3 or more units that gain Sentinel, that condition I think is a little high. I think it's supposed to be there to directly counter coordinate effects, but absolutely unplayable in this particular format. Padawan Starfighter, a 2 cost 1/3. While you control a force unit or force upgrade, it gets +1/+1. Well, that's just a bad rate. And you have absolutely no guarantee they're going to have either one of those. I am definitely not choosing this one if I can help it. Infantry, the 212. So here we have another situation. It's a 2/4 for 3, but coordinate with Sentinel. I think this was probably one of the weaker ones, having that require. I would rather have had like a 2/3 without coordinate and Sentinel. It's not going to last long, and it's too easy for someone to ping off like a trooper or something else to turn Sentinel off. I think it's generally not worth it. It doesn't hit back hard enough to even be worth it to me. When you think back to the previous set and you had like the constables, which I think only cost 3, and we're at 2/6, much better value proposition than these things are. Guarding the Way, give a unit Sentinel for this phase. If you have the initiative, give it +2/+2. I just don't really see it. There aren't enough. I mean, you could forestall something and allow something that, but for 2, I'm not really seeing it. I'm not impressed with this card at all. For rank 3, the Republic Defense Carrier, it's a massive 11, and in a game which you're generally not really going that long, 6/7. This unit costs 1 less to play for each unit controlled by the opponent who controls the most units. It has Sentinel, sure, but it's this line here. Less to play for each unit controlled by the opponent who controls the most units. So not even you. If it were this unit costs 1 less to play for each unit controlled by anybody, including yourself, it would be worth it. But you're not going to be dropping this enough for it to be worthwhile. I think this one expects that there's going to be a ridiculous board state. Like I will say during the pre-release, I did see a situation where a player had what at my count was actually at least 8 droids out on the board. Don't know how that got out of control like that, but they were 8. So yeah, I mean, in that Magical Christmas Lane scenario, bringing out this thing for 3 in space with Sentinel would be absolutely insane. I think this card is a Twin Suns card. I don't feel that it's certainly not going to be very good in limited unless something completely gets out of control and your opponent just allows you, unless you allow your opponent to have that many units. Let's say the best you could offer is like 8 when it comes out. I think it's still overcosted. If your opponent has like 3 on the ground. Especially since it's not going to affect the ground, it's only in space. Yeah, I'm really not liking the card. Manufactured Soldiers would be a great card if it wasn't in double green, if it wasn't double command. Choose 1, create 2 clone troopers, or create 3 battle droid tokens. I mean, it's great. I think this is a Twin Suns card. Or if you're playing some kind of double green command, who can I think of who's doing that? I don't know as of yet. This card may be a lot better, but I think in Constructed it's certainly not going to be in limited. I'm not paying 5 for that effect. Encouraging leadership. Give each friendly unit +1/+1 for this phase. This assumes that your board state you're going to have a lot of cards out. Well, in this particular format, they are, you have to keep the board under control. So I don't think it's going to be very potent, especially not for a cost of 3. Aggression. Okay, I have a controversial opinion, Jesse. A 3 cost 4/4, which is okay stat-wise. Republic Clone and Trooper Raid 1, which is also okay, but when played, an opponent creates 2 battle droid tokens. So I know there's a lot of commentary that people feel that this is not that bad of a raid or this bad of a punishment for playing your card like this. I don't want to do that. There are going to be a lot of circumstances in this game in which your opponent will be able to leverage that and exploit it. He's potent. I mean, I could be entirely wrong about this card. I'm just kind of down on it at the moment. I could be proven completely wrong. And in some ways, I hope that I am. I just don't like giving my opponent fuel for exploit or to turn on their coordinate against me. Bold resistance. Choose up to 3 units to share the same trait. Each of those units gets +2 for the phase. I mean, sure, your trait could be Trooper, could be Clone, could be Republic. Cost of 3. I mean, there's a chance that this game is better. This card is better than it looks, but I'm not entirely convinced. I think it's going to end up being fairly weak. You might get a little bit of use out of it. Doesn't boost their defense though. Yeah, might be a good aggression card. We'll see. I'm just not big on it. Twice the Pride. Of course, it's double aggression, so it's probably not worth it. Deal 2 damage to attached unit, but does +4 damage. Yeah, you're not going to be playing this one. However, people in Constructed seem to really like it for aggression, and I happen to agree. I think it's great there. Clone Heavy Gunner, a 1/3 for 2, so it's a bad rate. It has good traits, and Coordinate it gets +2. Again, I feel that if people are playing in this format, concentrating as they should be by keeping the board clear, it's not really going to get a lot of value out of it. A 1/3 is not very good. Reckless Torrent. The only thing I've seen this one good for is if you have Coordinate to be able to take out something in the same arena, like another spaceship that has, or something in space that has 2 left, and you absolutely have to kill it, and then it kills itself. So it's just basically removal for 3. If it sits out there as a 3/1 when there's no Coordinate, it's a 1. It's going to be destroyed very, very quickly, and really have no impact. I mean, your opponent does have to answer for it because it's a 3, but the 1 is extremely weak for a rate of 3, for a cost of 3. Cunning. Well, I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? It's Jar Jar. Double yellow, cost of 2, a 2/3 on attack, deal 2 damage to a random unit or base. That's just awful. Like, no, mind you, I enjoy random effects in games, and I think I would like there to be more of that. on activations, more random effects in Star Wars Unlimited. I just don't think they're ever really going to be. And this card is just dreadful. And I gotta say, okay, I'll take a second to mention the fact that it's very interesting that this set is all Clone Wars focused. There are very, very few references to the actual first film, to Phantom Menace, to the first of the prequels. No pod racing. No, again, we have one Jar Jar. No Boznaz, who I was convinced was going to be a leader in this set. No other kind of Gungans. No Gungan related stuff whatsoever. No Naboo starfighters. No giant weird anglerfish things. You know, and no Qui-Gon either. It's interesting that they completely avoided, almost completely avoided the first one. I'm shocked, to be honest, looking at how the art is and the effect of the card and the fact that the card is generally unplayable in any format. Worst card in the game, almost the worst card in the game. Well, it could still be. That they are so thoroughly erased Phantom Menace. And I'm kind of fine with that. Considering my age, I'm not a big fan of the prequel. Anyway, that total aside. And the the B1 security came a cost of 2, a 3/1. It's an early Sentinel. I may be wrong about this one. The one cost, there are too many ways to actually deal with it very effectively. The old holdout blaster just gets rid of it. Quinlan Voss just gets rid of it. Yeah, I mean, it demands an answer and hits back pretty hard, but yeah, I'm really not a big fan of it. So we're just going to combine villainy, heroism, and neutral here. Merciless contest. Cost 3. Each player chooses a non-leader unit that control defeat those units. It's choose, and it affects both. So in Magical Christmas Land, you've got a droid you want to get rid of, and they have Darth Maul. Unlikely that's the thing that's going to happen. I'm just not a big fan of this card. I get why it's there. I just don't like it. ETA-2 Light Interceptor, a cost of 5 for a 3/4 in space with Restore 2. This one I could be entirely wrong about, but I'm not really impressed by the stats. The Restore 2 is pretty good. I'm not going to turn my nose up at that. I am willing to admit I may be wrong about this one, but I'm not choosing this one over much else, even over a bad rare legendary. And then lastly, which is probably the absolute worst card in the game, Aggrieved Parliamentarian, a 2/2 for 2. When played, choose an opponent. They shuffle their discard pile and put it on the bottom of their deck. I don't know what this is for. I wonder if there is going to be, in the future, more graveyard shenanigans. I almost feel like this is the kind of card that is against a mill strategy. And we know that there's one mill card legendary in this set in Satine Kryze. But it's kind of odd that they printed this card just to counter that. But the thing is, too, it's an opponent. It doesn't even affect yourself, so that doesn't matter. I don't see where this ever helps anyone. The only thing I can think of is that there will be cards coming that really care about your discard more and more and more, to go fishing for things in discard. There are some in this set, there are some in the other sets, but something that really pushes that. And I'm wondering if this is going to be more of a Twin Suns card than anything else. All right, well, that was extremely long, longer than I thought, because I went through every single card. And, man, I've been kind of tired, so I'm sorry if I sort of phased out there in the middle. There were a couple of times that I was really running out of steam. Oh, well. So, in summary, I think in this set there are very, very few unplayable cards, and I think some of the ones that I'm kind of down on may just be because of personal preference. They may be better than I thought. Exploit, though, is definitely easier to leverage than coordinate, but I don't think coordinate is necessarily, if you're drafting towards that, you're drafting a lot of early cards with a lot of big bodies on them, of which there are. All those senators, all those ambassadors, and so on, all have a lot of hit points. There is a good chance that coordinate becomes more viable. Keeping the board clear is primary to shut down mechanics, though. If you are not spending most of your consideration, it may seem like a terrible waste sometimes, especially in late game. You've got a heavy hitter to take down. They've got like a single droid across the way from you that you can kill with one of your units, but you really want to put them into the base. Sometimes it's best to just kill that droid because you never know what's going to get exploited out at you. I found success doing it. Let's put it that way, so far. Again, in sealed, we'll see what happens in draft, but I think this is going to be, you need to have board control and maintain tempo, or else you can get blown out by a well-timed coordinate or exploit effect. And I think mid-range and control really won out in this. Again, you know, you want to be trying to control the board to key, and in that sense, tempo. Making sure that your opponent cannot leverage, coordinate, and exploit. Mid-range plays, I think, better into coordinate. So you want to have a lot of stuff out there with some solid bodies. Just, you know, gradually scaling up to have more and more power. Works for exploit too, though. You know, exploiting things early to get more powerful, harder to remove units. So that's pretty much why Vanquish is in this set, to make sure that that's a potential punishment for that kind of strategy, or counter for that strategy. Otherwise, it would get out of control. Aggro, I don't see this as an extremely aggro set. Even leaders that seem kind of aggro are really there, like Darth Maul, to push through overwhelm damage. Then it's more of a board control thing. Same thing with Anakin, giving +2 attacks, but it has to be used to attack other units. Good if you can put it on something that has overwhelm. Yeah, I just, I don't know how strong aggro is going to be, but mid-range and control are both, I think, where this set is at. We'll see. Again, I look forward to many months of drafting this set, and I hope that for all of you as well, that now that supply is not quite as restricted, and stores out there should be able to run drafts as long as you ask for them. And build your community that way, because it is super fun. Get a lot of drafts in. So, of course, as usual, I'd like to hear from you as to where you think I've gotten something right, got something wrong. I'll probably revisit this like I did with the last set as well, to see how well that I did. I'm going to track my overall success rate and what what I had in my decks and so on going forward. But yeah. So thanks for sticking through this. I'm definitely going to have to rehydrate because I am very dry from all this talking. And yeah, well, very tired too. It's exhausting making content. Anyway, so thanks for watching, and until next time, happy gaming. Thank you so much for watching Longship Gaming. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It will really help the channel to grow and improve. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when more Longship Gaming content goes live. Until next time, happy gaming.